Most men spend their lives trying to be remembered for all the wrong reasons. They chase affection, buy attention, and confuse validation with value. But here's the truth. No one told you. You're not forgotten because you weren't enough. You're forgotten because you blended in. For years, men have been programmed to please, to perform, to prove. They were taught that love is earned through sacrifice, that strength means never walking away, and that silence equals weakness. And so they give everything, their time, their focus, their dignity, hoping to be chosen. But the more they give, the less they are seen. Even strong men now walk on eggshells in their own relationships, terrified that one wrong move will make them unworthy. They don't realize that the moment you need approval, you've already lost power. Here's the truth that flips everything. Respect is not built through effort, it's built through boundaries. It's not your charm that makes you unforgettable, but your clarity. Not your perfection, but your refusal to bend when it matters. In this video, we'll uncover why women never forget certain men, not because of looks or money, but because of emotional impact. By the end, you'll understand what truly makes a man impossible to replace. A man who can't say no will never be respected. There's a quiet kind of weakness that wears the mask of kindness. You see it in men who always agree, who nod when they want to disagree, who bend so often that their spine forgets what standing straight feels like. They tell themselves they're being loving, understanding, patient. But beneath that gentleness hides fear, the fear of losing approval, the fear of being left behind, the fear of being alone. What they don't realize is this. Every time you say yes when your soul means no, a small part of you disappears. You trade pieces of yourself for temporary peace. You call it love, but it's survival. And survival, though it keeps you alive, slowly kills your essence. A woman can feel that. She might not say it, but she senses when a man's words come from fear instead of strength. And while she might enjoy the comfort of being agreed with, she cannot truly respect it. Because respect is born in resistance. It's awakened in the presence of a man who is unafraid to draw a line, even when that line risks her disapproval. Saying no is not about rebellion. It's not arrogance. It's truth spoken with backbone. A man who can say no is a man who knows himself. He understands that agreement without authenticity is a lie, and lies, no matter how polite, always rot the foundation of connection. When you say yes to everything, you become invisible. Because there's nothing distinct about a man who bends to every demand. He becomes another echo in the chorus of approval, a background noise to her life, not a presence that shapes it. But when you say no with calm conviction, everything shifts. That one word separates you from the sea of forgettable men. It signals clarity. It whispers, I am not here to please you. I am here to be real with you. And women, whether they admit it or not, crave that kind of clarity. They test, they push, not because they want to destroy your peace, but because they want to feel the edges of your strength. A firm boundary gives her something solid to lean on. It's not dominance, it's direction. To say no is to declare that your inner world has order. It means you are not tossed around by emotion or the need for validation. It means you are governed by principle, not impulse. And that quiet strength, that restraint, leaves a deeper mark than any grand romantic gesture ever could. Ask yourself, when was the last time you said no, not out of pride, but out of self-respect? When was the last time you let discomfort stand, instead of rushing to fix it just to avoid tension? Because every no spoken from authenticity is an act of self-honor. And in relationships, honor is remembered far longer than agreement. Sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is leave. Not with anger, not with noise, just quiet certainty. A woman may never forget the man who made her laugh, but she always remembers the one who walked away when she crossed the line. Because in that moment, he didn't just show strength, he reminded her that his self-worth wasn't up for negotiation. When a man walks away first, it rewires her psychology. She's used to being the one who decides when the story ends, when attention stops, when affection fades. But when you withdraw your presence before she withdraws hers, she's forced to confront a question she can't shake. Why didn't he need my approval to stay? That question echoes longer than any goodbye. It haunts her, not because of pain, but because of respect. She realizes she was in the presence of someone who didn't worship her attention, someone who didn't measure his worth by her mood. And that realization, that quiet discomfort, is what makes a man unforgettable. Walking away is not cruelty, it's not punishment. It's the final boundary, the moment where you choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion. Most men don't reach that point because they're too afraid. They cling to what's crumbling, hoping effort will turn into respect. But respect cannot be begged into existence. It either flows naturally from strength or it never comes at all. She starts playing games, she delays her replies, throws subtle jabs, or uses silence to make you chase. The ordinary man takes the bait. He doubles down, sends more messages, tries harder to be seen, but the man of dignity, he doesn't. He pauses, observes, and quietly steps back. No anger, no long speech, just stillness. She may act like she doesn't care, but that silence unsettles her more than confrontation ever could. Because silence is the reflection of a man who doesn't chase what's unsure, who doesn't argue for attention that's already fading. And in that stillness, she sees herself more clearly than she ever has. That's the paradox. The less you try to be remembered, the more unforgettable you become. A man's dignity doesn't shout, it whispers through absence. It's the calm withdrawal that says, I will not fight to be seen. I will not beg to be understood. My worth does not depend on your recognition. And that quiet conviction is something every woman, deep down, respects, even when she won't admit it. Because it's rare, because it's real, because it reflects something unshakable. When you can walk away with peace in your chest, without bitterness or blame, you've already won the only battle that matters, the one within yourself. Every man has a choice, to live as an echo or to stand as a boundary. The echo says yes to everything and fades quickly. The boundary says no when it matters and becomes a presence that lingers. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors with keys, keys that you choose to hand to those who've earned entry. Without them, everything gets in and nothing meaningful stays. So if you ever wonder why you're forgotten so easily, look not at her, but at your own spine. Have you given away too much of yourself in the name of being kind? Have you mistaken tolerance for love? Have you ever called fear patience just to avoid confrontation? If you have, understand this. Strength isn't loud and respect isn't demanded. Both are earned through quiet consistency, the courage to say no, the discipline to walk away, and the dignity to never explain why. The men who master these small acts of restraint are the ones who remain not in her phone, but in her memory. Because deep down, every woman remembers the man who respected himself enough to lose her, rather than lose himself trying to keep her. And that is the paradox of presence. Sometimes your absence is what teaches her who you truly were. Sometimes walking away is not the end of the story. It's the moment she finally begins to understand it. It's one thing to walk away from what disrespects you. It's another to walk away from what tempts you. The first takes pride. The second takes mastery, and this is where most men stumble, not because they don't know what's right, but because they can't control what pulls them. A man may build walls against disrespect, but without self-control, desire itself becomes the doorway through which he's conquered. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead anyone. Leadership isn't about giving orders. It's about direction born from discipline, and the first person you must lead is always yourself. When you lose control of your impulses, you surrender quiet power. You start reacting instead of responding. You start chasing instant relief instead of lasting respect. The irony is that most men don't even realize they're losing control. They call it chemistry, passion, or just being a man. But in truth, they're being ruled by the very thing they think defines their masculinity. To lead yourself means to remain grounded in moments where the world tries to pull you off center. It's to feel the fire of want, but not let it burn your judgment. Because the moment your desire owns you, everything else about you, your authority, your confidence, your calm, begins to crumble. There's a kind of man who loses himself the second he feels attraction. He forgets his standards, his priorities, his purpose. All of it fades under the heat of wanting her. He becomes available, predictable, eager. He mistakes surrender for connection and lust for love. But here's the truth: desire without control is weakness. When a man can't hold himself steady in front of beauty, what does that say about his inner world? When a glance, a touch, or a moment of attention is enough to make him forget who he is, then his strength was only ever surface deep. Every woman feels it instantly. She can sense when a man's desire owns him. His energy changes. His words lose weight. His presence becomes need, not leadership. And while she may entertain it for a while, she will never truly respect it. Because discipline, not desire, is what makes a man magnetic. When you can look at what you want and still wait, there's a kind of power in that silence. It tells her that your need does not define you, that you could, but you choose not to, that your control is stronger than your craving, and that calm restraint is the deepest form of confidence. Desire is natural, but control is earned. A man who desires but doesn't chase, who feels attraction but doesn't collapse under it, he rules the dynamic without saying a word. He stands apart from the crowd because he's not hunting, he's observing. He's not trying to prove his worth through pursuit. He's proving it through patience, and that patience changes everything. It's not about denying what you feel, it's about mastering how you express it. Because any man can be hungry, but only a rare man can be hungry and still walk away with a steady heartbeat. That is the kind of man a woman remembers. Not the one who begged for a chance, but the one who made her wonder, why doesn't he want me like the others do? That question lingers. That curiosity becomes fascination. And that fascination, born from restraint, is far more powerful than any seduction. There's another truth most men refuse to face. Women don't truly respect what they can control. They might enjoy it. They might use it. But deep down, control kills attraction. Because control removes mystery, and mystery is the pulse of desire. Too many men confuse love with surrender. They think letting her lead every step is a sign of care. They believe that constant agreement will make her feel safe. But the opposite happens. The more she controls, the less she trusts. The more she leads, the more she questions your strength. Because she's not looking for domination, she's looking for direction. Leadership in a relationship isn't about control, it's about calm authority. It's the ability to set a tone of safety without taking away freedom. It's the quiet confidence of a man who can make decisions without ego and hold space for her emotions without losing his own center. That's what she truly craves, not a man who competes with her, but one who guides the rhythm of connection without losing rhythm within himself. And here's the paradox. When you lead calmly, she relaxes. When you yield completely, she doubts. Because your leadership gives her the freedom to rest, to let go, to trust. Your lack of it forces her to step into roles she doesn't even want. To challenge her fantasy of control is to remind her that respect and safety are born from balance. It's to say, not with words, but with presence, I see you, I value you, but I will not be ruled by your emotions. And that statement, unspoken but felt, awakens something ancient in her psychology. It tells her she's not dealing with a boy who reacts, she's standing in front of a man who directs, she's upset. She wants to test your composure, maybe even provoke you. Most men panic in that moment. They raise their voices, they argue, they chase closure. But the man who leads stays grounded. He lets her storm, but he doesn't drown in it. His silence is not withdrawal, it's awareness. His calm is not detachment, it's direction. He knows that leadership doesn't mean overpowering her, it means guiding her back to balance without losing his own. And that's exactly why she trusts him, because his energy tells her, you can feel everything, and I'll still hold steady. That steadiness, more than looks, more than charm, more than money, is what makes him unforgettable. Self-control is not about suppressing emotion, it's about transforming it into strength. Leadership is not about control, it's about trust. When you master yourself, you stop chasing what's temporary. You start attracting what's aligned. You move differently. You speak slower. You choose better. And suddenly, life begins to orbit around your steadiness, not your need. You don't lead her to own her. You lead her so she can trust you. Because when a man learns to lead himself, his emotions, his impulses, his attention, he becomes the kind of man who doesn't just move through relationships, he shapes them. And that's the quiet mark of real power. Not the man who dominates, not the man who obeys, but the man who directs without needing control, who desires without losing discipline, who loves without losing himself. That's the man she never forgets. Strength may begin with self-control, but it's completed by silence. Because once you've learned to lead yourself, to restrain, to direct, to stay grounded, the next test isn't what you do. It's what you don't do. Most men lose their power not through weakness, but through excess. Too many words, too much effort, too much attention. They think that giving more will prove their worth. But what they don't see is that every unnecessary gesture, every desperate text, every over-explained emotion quietly devalues them. In a world where attention is cheap, silence becomes priceless. Every woman is surrounded by validation. Compliments in her messages, likes on her photos, flattery from men who think admiration equals connection. But all of it blurs together, because what's abundant loses meaning. When validation becomes constant, it becomes invisible. That's why the man who doesn't rush to praise, who doesn't hand out approval like free samples, suddenly stands out. His silence has weight. His words, when they finally come, are remembered, because they mean something. Over-validation breeds indifference. The more you try to convince her she's special, the more ordinary you become. She's heard it all before, the same recycled lines, the same over-eager energy that screams, "Please notice me." But rare words carry real impact. When your praise is earned, not automatic, she feels it. Because it's not coming from need, it's coming from truth. And truth has a vibration that can't be faked. She might act like she wants constant attention, but deep down, she craves the opposite, your discernment. She wants to earn your approval, to feel like your admiration is something of value, not something freely given to anyone with a pulse and a smile. The man she never forgets isn't the one who drowned her in compliments. It's the one who looked at her quietly, without judgment, and didn't fall for her image. He saw her patterns, her walls, her contradictions. He didn't rush to validate them, he let her reveal herself. And that waiting, that patience, changed the entire dynamic. Because in his silence, she started listening to herself. A man's respect should be sacred. Yet too many give it away like it costs nothing. They meet a woman, find her attractive, and instantly treat her like royalty, not because she's proven her character, but because she's beautiful. But beauty alone doesn't deserve reverence. Respect, like love, must be earned. When you hand out respect without reason, you don't look generous, you look desperate. You show that your standards are negotiable, that admiration can be bought with appearance, and once she realizes that, you stop being a mystery and start being an option. The man she remembers is the one who doesn't hand out respect as charity, but as currency. Rare, valuable, conditional on integrity. This kind of man doesn't confuse politeness with submission. He treats everyone kindly, but not everyone equally. He observes first, listens, watches how people treat themselves and others before deciding how much space they deserve in his life. And when it comes to women, that patience is magnetic. Because for the first time, she meets a man who doesn't immediately fold under her charm. Instead, she feels a challenge, a quiet demand to rise. Standards raise behavior. When your boundaries are clear, the energy around you changes. She starts measuring herself differently. Her tone softens, her effort deepens, her ego quiets, because she realizes your respect has value, and she wants to earn it. A man who values his respect teaches others how to treat him. He never needs to announce his worth. It's felt in how he moves, how he reacts, and especially in what he refuses to tolerate. So if you want to be remembered, don't just respect women, respect yourself enough to make your respect mean something. Because once your respect becomes selective, your presence becomes sacred. Here's a secret about attraction. Predictability kills emotion. Most men become patterns, predictable texts, predictable words, predictable energy. They become part of her routine, something she can anticipate, schedule, and eventually ignore. But the man who breaks that pattern without breaking her peace is the one who stays in her mind. Uncertainty awakens desire. It's not about manipulation, it's about contrast. It's about not being another line in her calendar, but a moment that changes her rhythm. You see, routine is safe, but it's also numb. People say they want stability, but what they really want is aliveness. They want the spark that shakes them out of autopilot. The unforgettable man becomes that spark. He's not always available. He doesn't always respond right away. He doesn't text just to fill silence. His energy appears when it's real, disappears when it's time. And that unpredictability, rooted in purpose, not games, creates tension, curiosity, emotion. It keeps her guessing, keeps her invested. But there's a line. The goal isn't chaos. The goal is to disrupt her comfort, not her trust, to keep her intrigued, not anxious. The difference lies in intention. You don't disappear to punish, you step back to reset. You don't confuse her to gain power, you move differently, to remind her that your time and presence are deliberate choices, not default reactions. That difference is everything, because when you finally do reach out, when you finally show up, she feels it. Your attention lands heavier. Your words hit deeper. You've taught her through your rhythm that nothing about you is routine. Value is created through scarcity, and presence becomes meaningful when it's not available to everyone. Most men think being unforgettable means being constantly seen, heard, and available, but it's the opposite. It's the absence, the silence, the boundaries that shape memory. A man who speaks rarely, but with conviction. His words echo. A man who appears sparingly, but with purpose. His presence lingers. A man who doesn't hand out validation, respect, or attention carelessly. His energy becomes unforgettable because people don't crave what they can always have. They crave what they might lose. So if you want to be remembered, don't rush to impress. Slow down. Speak less. Choose who gets your focus. Let your absence do what your words can't. When attention is cheap, silence becomes priceless. And in that silence, your presence multiplies in her memory. Because you were never trying to be unforgettable, you simply were. The man who learns the art of scarcity doesn't chase connection, he creates meaning. He knows that love isn't about how much you give, but how intentionally you give it. In a noisy world of overexposure and over-explanation, he remains rare, calm, deliberate, unshakable. And when he finally speaks, the world goes quiet. That's the paradox of presence. It's not the loudest who are remembered, it's the rarest. Silence might make her think of you, but depth, that makes her feel you. It's one thing to be missed, it's another to be remembered. Most men hold attention through charm or mystery, but what truly endures goes deeper. What lasts isn't beauty, money, or effort, it's impact. And impact isn't about how much you gave, it's about how deeply you changed her. A memory fades, a scar remains. Every woman carries traces of men she's met. Most blur together, kind, fun, replaceable. But there's always one who didn't just enter her story, he rewrote it. Not because he caused pain, but because he brought truth. And truth always cuts before it heals. Women forget pleasure faster than they forget transformation. When you hold your ground with calm honesty, when you refuse to play along with her illusions, you leave a psychological imprint. You become the mirror she can't escape, the reflection she once avoided. Even if she resists, something inside her shifts. Impact is born from truth and boundaries. Truth without boundaries is chaos. Boundaries without truth are walls. When you live both, you awaken her, not through words, but through example. Because authenticity doesn't just attract, it alters. You don't become unforgettable by being what she wants. You become unforgettable by being what she needed, even if she hated you for it at first. Sometimes it's not your affection she remembers, but your firmness. Not your closeness, but the moment you walked away with peace. That's what reshapes her, realizing love and strength can exist in the same man. That care without self-respect isn't love, it's self-betrayal. Real impact rarely looks gentle. It often looks like silence, tension, distance. But behind that stillness lies a message she can't unlearn. Not everything that feels good is right, and not everything that hurts is wrong. You stop being just another man in her past. You become a lesson, and lessons don't fade, they evolve. You're not unforgettable because you hurt her. You're unforgettable because you awakened her. You didn't just speak, you embodied. You didn't just love, you reflected. That kind of man doesn't leave wounds. He leaves scars, and scars don't fade. They redefine. They whisper of moments that shaped her strength and standards. You become part of her internal compass, the quiet voice that says, don't settle, don't disrespect yourself. Remember what real felt like. Integrity gives your presence gravity. It's not perfection, it's alignment. The discipline to stay true when emotion begs you to bend. People forget those who please them. They remember those who free them. Years later, your name may not be spoken, but when she sees weakness disguised as charm, she'll remember your calm. When she feels unseen, she'll recall how you valued yourself. You won't live as a ghost, but as a standard. Because many men leave a void, but a few, those who live with integrity and depth, leave a blueprint. A memory fades, a scar remains, and in that scar, your presence whispers, not as pain, but as proof that something real once existed. In the end, what makes a man unforgettable isn't how loudly he loves, it's how deeply he lives. You don't need to chase, prove, or perform. You just need to stand where others bend, because the moment you lead yourself with clarity, respect, and truth, everything and everyone begins to shift around you. If this message spoke to something inside you, you're not alone. You're part of a rare kind of man, one who chooses growth over comfort and truth over illusion. Subscribe to Charismand and stay with us. Every week, we dive deeper into the psychology of power, attraction, and emotional mastery, not to play games, but to understand yourself. Watch the next video. It'll show you how silence turns respect into desire, and how your calm presence becomes your greatest weapon. Your evolution starts here. Stay grounded and keep watching.